station, KZSE Sports Free Expression of Ideas. Please be aware that the opinions expressed are those of the speakers or artists only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the UC Regents, KZSE staff, management, or underwriters. We welcome your feedback on our programming. Please direct your comments to the Program Review Committee at 831-459-4726 or by email at prc@kzse.org. And this is Unquestionable. I'm Dan Wu. I'm in here at the studio with DJ Peach, which is a little added bonus for the day. We got our pledge drive going on. We had the concert calendar, all the things that I often sprinkle into my show as I remember them. But we are in the studio right now with Mariah Lyons of Slug Support, and we are going to get to basically finding out what Slug Support is, because I want to know where the services are that help people in need up at UCSC specifically, and kind of reflect that into the greater community to know that there are services available in the greater community, but we're using Slug Support kind of as an example of what life of a grief counselor is, all the other things that Slug Support does. So how's it going, Mariah?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
So first off, what is Slug Support in the most general terms for students that may not know about it? Maybe a parent that doesn't know about it that maybe could refer their student to it.
Yeah, so Slug Support is a case management program outside of or inside the Dean of Students office. And so we support students with a variety of needs. A lot of them are based around basic needs. So food support, housing support, financial needs, advocacy on campus, and as well as just referrals to both on and off campus resources. So one way to look at it is students are obviously here to get an education, and they get a lot of support from faculty and advising around that. But life happens, and students have other things going on that sometimes get in the way of them doing well in school. And so we're here to really try and provide support so that they can continue on and ultimately graduate from UCSC.
All right. Who staffs the Slug Support offices? And you said life happens. What's maybe the skeleton diagram of what makes up the staff at Slug Support? Who else is involved in that? And I know the CAPS program is a kind of a psychological crisis services that links from Slug Support. But are they the same thing?
So no. So we don't actually do grief counseling in Slug Support. So we certainly see students who are in crisis, who may be dealing with that sort of thing, and we'll definitely lend our ear and try to provide some emotional support. But if a student's really in need of some counseling for grief or anything else, we would refer them to CAPS or to someone in the community to get some clinical counseling work. So we do work very closely with CAPS. They refer students a lot to us and vice versa, but we don't actually do counseling per se in our program. So they are two separate programs, but they obviously overlap because students often have needs in both.
What's the most common scenario you're presented with from students that end up at your door or on the phone?
So there's three things that students come in for a lot, and sometimes they might come in for one, but often all three, and that is food insecurity, housing insecurity, and financial insecurity, all three of those. And those can show up in different ways, but the majority of the students that we see are dealing with something like that.
And how many years have you been working in the Slug Support office?
I have been there about 3.5 years, and the program is about 7 or 8 years old.
I asked that because I was wondering if you, or maybe people you talk with about their experiences, have those things about food insecurity and housing insecurity increased in recent times? Do you think that concerns about that, about cost of living, are maybe overblown by socialists? What do you think is going on there?
I think the need has certainly increased. And, just as an example with our program, the program started out with one case manager, and I think the first year they saw about 30 students. Now since that time, the program has served about 3,500 students, and we have 4 case managers. So the program has grown immensely, and a lot of that is due to higher need for all of those things. So cost of living has obviously gotten more expensive all over the country, but Santa Cruz, as most people know, there's a huge housing crisis, and cost of attendance has gone up. Grants don't cover as much as they used to. There's a lot of things that have occurred, and I think we also have outreached more. So it's hard to know sometimes if some of that need was there before, and we weren't outreaching, so students didn't know to come in. And part of that was we used to have one case manager, and now we have 4 and can serve more students.
That is a really interesting point, because the first thing that comes to mind when you say we may not have known the need was there, I think of the homeless census, which is something taken here and in San Francisco and some other areas, Fresno and certain areas, where they're finding, wow, there's thousands more homeless people than we used to know. But before, there weren't people going out and really going into the woods and behind buildings and all these places and asking people, right, hey, what's your name? How long have you been here? And making sure that they're not asking the same person because they slept in 2 different areas. Mm-hmm. That's a really interesting thing, is that sometimes people may say a problem didn't exist before, but maybe it's because we weren't looking at that problem, right?
Right. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm not used to this, but I have DJ Peach in the studio, and I was wondering, you're still a student here. Do you have any thoughts on Slug Support or any experiences with Slug Support from your friends, or anything like that, or questions about it?
Yeah, definitely. I have had friends go in for both housing insecurity and food insecurity, from what I know of, and as far as I know, it's been helpful. I know that they are really good at referring to other organizations that can also help. And also, I was just thinking about how there's been a lot of food pantries on campus that have opened up in more recent years through the SUA, and then the Cowell Coffee Shop is now more of a communal space that has free food. And was that anything to do with Slug Support?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the Cow Coffee Shop, there's a food pantry right above it, and that actually until this past October, I believe, was actually in our office, was in the Dean of Students office. So it actually is a pantry operated out of the Dean of Students. We just moved it over there to have a bigger space than we had available at the Dean of Students office. So we do operate that food pantry. We have staff and student staff who help do that. We also have a program called Swipes for Slugs that you may have heard about, where students can donate any of their meal swipes, unused meal swipes in the quarter, and then we kind of have access to that bank of those. So in an emergency situation, we can issue meal swipes to a student who maybe have some immediate food needs. And then we also have some emergency gift cards to Safeway for the same reason that we can give out. And then along with the food pantry over at Cowell, we have a large number of staff and students who are trained to help students apply for CalFresh. And that, for many students, can be a form of long-term food support.
Thank you so much. Anything else there?
No, but I was going to say the CalFresh too. I've seen a lot of people out in the quarry on campus and stuff, helping people sign up and just getting people informed, because I've actually had this conversation with a lot of people about CalFresh, and they don't even know what that means. They don't understand that it's it's assistance, and it's something that a lot of students can qualify for, and I think it's great.
Yeah, it's a really great resource. There's, and not me specifically, but a lot of people out of our office are doing a lot of great work to expand access to CalFresh on campus, make sure students know about it, working with the county to see who can qualify for the program, working with Second Harvest Food Bank on some of those pop-ups you've seen in the quarry. So there's a lot of really great work around that. And we also partnered with CERC on campus recently, and they were doing partnering with us to kind of look at our data and see what some of the data was showing in terms of if our services are helping students. And the number one thing overall that came out of that was really showing how much CalFresh is connected to student retention and how big of a support it can be.
And I want to pivot a little bit, and I want to mention there is a student election going on here at UCSC, and I'm going to read these ballot measures in a minute out of our responsibility to be fair political informers to the community. But full disclosure, Slug Support, there is a related measure to Slug Support related measure on the ballot this quarter, and I'm however you look at it, whether it's a competing ballot initiative or whether it's just another one that would maybe impact people's enthusiasm to vote for it. I'm going to read all 4 of those measures after this interview, but Slug Support we're just talking about what Slug Support offers, and I coincidentally just booked this interview not knowing that this ballot measure was there because I'm not a student anymore. And let's face it, no one votes in these elections, so maybe we should change that. Because I didn't know about a lot of these ballot initiatives when I was a student here because I was so busy with everything that when I would hear about the totals that people would win office, student president and these ballot initiatives, when I would hear the percentages of people that voted for them to make them happen, it was usually very, very low. So I'm going to be reading all those ballot measures in a minute. But I want to pivot while we have some time left to the housing insecurity part of your guys' work and how that works, what you're able to do for students. I've had an experience with people asking you for that and maybe getting some interesting answers. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so housing insecurity is obviously a huge issue for students and community members in Santa Cruz. And so a couple different ways that we have in place right now to help students. Up until recently, we had just had an emergency housing contract with a hotel off campus. And so if students are in an emergency situation, either they're in an unsafe situation or they don't have any housing, we could place them there at the hotel, but it was usually only a few days, so it was kind of a Band-Aid approach. And now, as of the middle of March, we have developed a new relationship with CHES, and we actually have a transitional housing program, and we have 2 apartments over at Family Student Housing that we can use to place students there. And for longer term. So roughly around 2 weeks, but sometimes we can extend that depending on the situation or if it's full or not. And so that has been just really exciting. It's still not resolving the issue completely, but just being able to offer more support to students has been really great. So that is new, and we've been using it a lot since we opened it. We do, as part of our financial hardship program, sometimes if students do have a place to live, but they are having some financial difficulty paying rent, sometimes we can issue like an emergency award to help students with that kind of cost. And then we also help students if they are interested in wanting to move back onto campus or trying to need some advocacy for living a specific place on campus and don't currently have a place to live. We'll work with housing to try and get them into on-campus housing.
Awesome. And I want to also give because there's so much linkage between your 2 departments, maybe you could talk about when people show up at your office, because I made the mistake of seeing so much linkage between the crisis counseling and your website, Slug Support, obviously, because people go there thinking, oh, this is support for slugs, and that's me, Slug Support. Right. They go there, and then it's very prominent on your webpage saying this is where you go for crisis counseling. And I did notice that it had a different department name. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize it was so maybe separate as you're saying now. Mm-hmm. So I had a whole bunch of questions for that because I was drawing from my own personal experience of this year. Yeah. And I was like, I want to have some grief counselors on and see what the life of a grief counselor is. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about when people show up to your office with those types of concerns or issues and how you deal with that and how you handle at least the interim period of getting them there without making them feel like you were just like, oh, wrong office over there?
Absolutely. Yeah, so students come into our office for all sorts of reasons, and so we don't turn anyone away, even if we might be not the right resource. We still want to check in with them to make sure they're okay and make sure they get to the right place. So, and I will share too, myself as well as the other case managers in the office, we all have a background in mental health, so we're able to provide some initial support. We're just not a clinical program, and so we don't do that on an ongoing basis. But when students do come in with those types of crisis, someone will meet with them right away just to check in about what's going on. Our intake process is very informal, so we like to just generally kind of check in and see what questions a student has, or what are the things that are immediate for them, and then from there we can kind of help them develop a plan. So if students do report that they're grieving or that they really need to see a therapist, we let them, I usually explain a little bit about, some ways that our program can help, and then I usually ask them, are you familiar with CAPS? This is kind of what CAPS does. Is that something you would be interested in? And if they are, we sometimes will call with them to make an appointment. We can walk them up there if they need to. Sometimes they just need the information. It can really vary. And then in addition to that, just on that same note, with CAPS, CAPS refers to us a lot, and sometimes that is because a student might be getting referred for off-campus therapy for more long-term support. And if there's a financial barrier to that, we can assess whether or not we might be able to provide a financial award to help with some of that cost.
Awesome, because that's whether it's a store you're buying something in or an office you're trying to get services, it's the most frustrating thing when they're like, oh, you've waited in this line. No, it's that line over there you're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
And that's really great that you guys have a system for dealing with that.
Yeah, and I mean, some of what our program does is, I think there are a lot of wonderful resources on campus. It can be difficult to navigate, not only physically, but just where, sometimes it's confusing where you're supposed to go for which question. And so it can feel like another job to be running around campus, figuring out where to go and who to talk to. And so we often play that point person. We're like, okay, this question needs answering by financial aid. You need to talk with CAPS. Maybe you need to meet with the DRC, EOP. And we kind of make sure that they know kind of who's on their team, who to go to for which thing. And sometimes we do that for them as well. So if they're feeling really overwhelmed, maybe they are going to follow up with their advisor, but we're going to find out a question about something else for them, or just do kind of a warm handoff so that they don't feel as overwhelmed.
Of all the people I notified about this show, to the 3 of them that actually are listening, sorry for the false advertising. I am not having a grief counselor on. I thought the offices were linked enough where that was going to be a thing. But thank you so much, Mariah, for coming on the show, letting us know about Slug Support. And I could see you probably get all the calls because you have the most vague name of all of them.
I know.
People are like, I don't need psychological services. I just need support. I need food support. I need, something like that. So I could see how you guys become the traffic director of that whole situation. And thank you so much for being on the show. We are going to detour for a little break here. Probably have DJ Peach in the office still, in the studio here. I like calling it an office, apparently, because that's what I did. We are going to have a representative from the UC labor union, UPTE, local union from the UC system, the Santa Cruz branch, to talk about the recent strikes, what's going on with that. In one moment, I'm going to come back and read all those ballot initiatives so that people's complaints will be, more clarified when they're like, this guy has an opinion. So we'll be right back on Unquestionable. KZSC Santa Cruz. Thank you so much. We're back here with Unquestionable, KZSC Santa Cruz. Thank you so much to Mariah Lyons from Slug Support for coming in the studio and talking. And they're doing a photo shoot, DJ Peach and Mariah right now. Super awesome. Love to see enthusiastic faces in the studio, because sometimes I like the reminder that it is great to be able to come up to a radio station, because I still love it. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I'm really tired. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so many pieces of paper I have to move around. And do I really have to sign this thing? And did I hit record? And then LC smiles and you're like, you know what? No one needs that this early. There is a UCSC election going on. Thank you so much, Mariah, walking out of the studio right now. There is an election going on. So we're going to spend a few minutes here before we have a UC labor rep on who is in the lobby right now. The 2019 campus elections. Maybe DJ Peach will read this one, and I'll read some of the initiatives here. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and thank Alex for donating to our pledge drive. If you want to head over to kzsc.fm/give and donate to our pledge drive, we would really appreciate it. Keeps us serving the community and literally keeps our lights on. So thank you so much for those who have donated. And again, that's kzsc.fm/give. And yeah, we would really appreciate your donations. So for the 2019 campus elections, KZSE thanks the Campus Elections Commissioner and the Dean of Students Office for supporting this program and student-run community radio. The UC Santa Cruz Spring 2019 campus elections take place between May 13th and May 22nd. Voting takes place online and is open to currently registered Spring 2019 students with their gold IDs. Included on the ballot are the following referenda. Measure 70 would enact a new student fee to support the Career Center with new job-seeking platforms and programs. Measure 71 is an amendment to the existing college student government fee to support student events and student worker salaries. Measure 72 would allow the Division of Student Success to create a permanent hub for its critical student services and programs such as Slug Support, Counseling and Psychological Services, and the Cove, UCSC's Resource Center for Students in Recovery. Measure 73 is an amendment to an existing fee to provide additional funding to sustain transit services provided through campus transit operations and the service contract with Santa Cruz Metro Transit District. The Student Union Assembly constitutional amendments will focus on providing new mechanisms for transparency and accountability. The Student Union Assembly and Graduate Student Association elections for officers in assembly, and finally, an opinion poll from the Campus Sustainability Office on extending an existing fee to augment wages the office pays students and expand the availability and reach of its programs. There's more information regarding the 2019 UCSC campus elections, which is available at elections.ucsc.edu.
Also, at deanofstudents.ucsc. Thank you so much, DJ Peach. I didn't realize that announcement was going to make you read a short version of all of those ballot initiatives, but I found at deanofstudents.ucsc.edu/elections, without a student ID number and password anymore, I was able to log in and find the more detailed description of the ballot initiatives, which I am going to go over right now. And also, for anyone listening in the community, to know how money is being spent and how we decide on what goes on up here at UCSC, at least for the parts of it that have direct democracy input. Measure 70, that Career Center platforms and programs fee, reads as such. Shall the undergraduate and graduate students of UCSC provide funding for the Career Center to support platforms and student-directed programming by enacting a $10.89 per student per quarter fee, that's 3 quarters a year, fall, winter, spring, $10.89 per student per quarter to the Career Center platforms and programs beginning in fall 2019. This fee will sunset in 12 years. So the Career Center would get that money about $33 a year per student. Measure 71, amendment to college student government fee, undergraduates only, would entail that the undergraduate students of UCSC increase the college student government fee from $10 per year per undergraduate student per quarter. Okay, so $30 a year to $20 per quarter per student over a 4-year period to be allocated by separate student governments at each college. Under the advisement of the college programs coordinator, fee increases would go to support student events, student salaries, stipends for orientation staff, and funding allocations for student orgs. Effective fall quarter 2019 with an increase of $7, increasing $1 more each fall until the total in 4 years would be reached of $20 per student per quarter. Again, these are off the Dean of Students website. These are the summaries, so these aren't arguments for or against. Measure 72, the Student Success Hub facility fee, would entail, if approved, that the Student Success Services Hub fee to be assessed to all students as part of the Kresge College Renewal Project. This compulsory $23.90 quarterly fee would be assessed in the fall, winter, and spring quarters, and a reduced fee will be charged in the summer quarter based on the level of services available and consultation with the Student Fee Advisory Committee. The fee would allow the Division of Student Success to secure permanent space as part of the Kresge College Renewal Project for the following critical student services and programs: Slug Support, Counseling, and Psychological Services, CAPS, Slug Support that I just had on, and The Cove, UCSE's Resource Center for Students in Recovery. I'm guessing that means substance abuse recovery. It doesn't say, but I'm guessing that's what that means. Measure 70, and I'm getting a nod from DJ Peach. Measure 73, the last one, is the student transportation fee amendment to Measure 24. If passed, it would increase the current quarterly transportation fee of $111.66 per student by $10.34 in fall 2022, an additional $8 in fall 2023, and an additional $3 each fall quarter from 24 through 2027, an additional $4 in fall 2028 and fall 2029, bringing it to a grand total of $191 over the next 9 years, which will provide additional funding to sustain transit services provided through campus transit operations and the service contract with the Santa Cruz Metro Transit District. So anyways, that's all on there. That last one was a mouthful because they are going to slowly increase that. Basically, the increase would be $80 per quarter per student, but that would slowly roll in over 9 or 10 years. So that is that as far as the ballot initiatives. That election is continuing until the 22nd, so you can vote on that for today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. And DJ Peach?
Oh, I was just going to say, you can go to elections.ucsc.edu. That's like the website.
You can do that. Yes, it is indeed. And we are in the middle of our pledge drive. We really appreciate your pledges. I am allergic to microphones all of a sudden.
Oh, no.
But we will fix that because we're going to have a UC labor union representative on in a minute to talk about the current state of their not current contract with the UC system. It's not just UC Santa Cruz. It's just the Santa Cruz branch of a statewide conversation going on right now. We'll be back in a minute with that segment on Unquestionable. I'm Dan Wu, hoping DJ Peach will stick around. We're in the middle of our pledge drive. I saw we're about a third of the way to our goal of 25,000 as of the 18th, and I know that LC was out there hustling yesterday on Breakfast in Bed, always probably bringing in the big bucks because everyone loves Breakfast in Bed. It's been around forever. Like 4 people that don't believe in money love this show. But if you feel like mentioning Unquestionable as a show that you listen to when you give your pledge, that would just warm my heart. It doesn't really do much more than that because we're not judging shows on what money they bring in here. But LC's probably way better at it than me. That's all I'm saying. That's
Everyone
all I'm
loves
saying.
LC.
Yeah, absolutely. And also Lonnie. I'm sure that they just bring in the money. And we are really, really, really grateful to all your donations that pay for the mics, the chairs, the cold water that comes out of our faucets, the locks on the doors, the vinyl, everything that goes on at this station is because of your contributions, business contributions, and some contributions that come out of the student fees, a little $2 or $3 per quarter per student, and we're really grateful to UCSC for making that still possible. Thank you so much.
And
we are in the middle of that pledge drive.
Yeah, and you can go to kzsc.fm/give to donate.
Yes, you can. Directions are always helpful. We'll be back in just a moment with the UC Labor Union. I'm Dan Wu. We also have special guest host DJ Peach in the studio, which I've been telling students in our broadcast class, which your donations also pay for, that they are welcome to book segments on this show, so it's not just me all the time. No one's taken me up on it yet. This station will not give me a mentee because it just hasn't happened. I'm just joking. I'm totally joking. But I think they're afraid of me having a mentee. Thank you so much for your donations.
kzsc.fm/give.
/give.
That's
yes.
your URL.
I'm so confused by these .fm things. I'm an old person. You can put .anything now. We really, really, really appreciate your donations, and it keeps things running up here. And we have another guest in the studio. We have Bill Spencer, Leadership Development Coordinator for the University Professional and Technical Employees Union. That's UPTE for the catchy marketing people out there. UPTE. Branch 9119, I believe. It says here on his business card. No, UCSC Local 3 as well. So, Mr. Spencer, how's it going today, first off?
I'm doing all right. Thanks for asking.
Now, I asked before you got on the air whether or not this strike that's been going on with UCSC maybe had happened at CSUMB in Monterey because that's part of our broadcast zone. This is, however, a UC-specific labor discussion, dispute, conversation going on between the technical workers at UCSC and the administration. It's not part of the California State University system. So some people in our other parts of the broadcast area that may care about this issue maybe didn't see the strikes going on at the basic campus last Thursday, and whether or not they like that idea. They may be curious to know your perspective on what's going on. Can you give us, first off, the ABC's intro to why people have been going on strike about once a quarter, as a day or 2 or 3 days sometimes, with the UC system?
Sure. So I'm with UPTE, as you mentioned. We're the University Professional and Technical Employees Union. We represent about 15,000 UC employees at all the 10 campuses and the 5 medical centers, not outside of the UC system, as you mentioned. And we've been around for about 25 years. That's all we do is represent UC professionals, and our members find it's helpful to have pay contracts that give them regular pay increases. Their benefits are stronger if they're represented than if they're not. They're more protected. And we have great stewards on campus that help people with workplace issues or being reclassified. Every 3 or 4 years, campus unions that have contracts have to renegotiate those with UC. And it always takes a while. There are always issues, give and take on both sides. But this time around, it's been unusually difficult to get to an agreement with UC. It's not just our union either. There have been issues with the nurses at the medical centers, about 15,000 of them, and also with the service workers. There are about 25,000 people represented by AFSCME, service workers, as well as people at the medical centers. So as you mentioned, over the last year, there actually have been 5 strikes, which is unprecedented for the contract negotiations with UC. 2 of them were 3-day strikes, 3 of them were 1-day strikes. We're very frustrated, very surprised that UC has just not gotten off the mark in terms of what it's offering our members in terms of pay and benefits. But our members are willing to hold out for a better deal because it's absolutely essential for the future of their livelihoods and their ability to do their jobs well.
Now, when you say this time around, I feel like this has been going on the whole 2 years that I was a transfer student here, plus this year. How long has the conversation been at such a intensity level that it has warranted these periodic strikes? And has it been the whole 3 years that I was here, or is that my imagination because I've seen them so much recently?
No, it's a great question, and it seems like a long time to us as well. Our current contract expired at the end of September in 2017, and it's the same with AFSCME, the service workers. So you got about 40,000 UC workers system-wide whose last ratified contracts expired at the end of September in 2017. They haven't seen pay increases since that time. We started bargaining with UC for a new contract before the old one ended, but have gotten almost nowhere in 2 years' worth of bargaining. And we've gone through various stages of the legal processes, had mediators, and it's gotten to the point where basically UC has said that they've made their last, best, and final offer. For most of the time, they've been stuck at offering our members about a 2% cost of living pay increase, which doesn't even keep up with inflation. They've been insisting on changes to the pension, to offering a new tier of the pension that would be weaker for people, and also offering new hires the option of going into a 401k program instead of the pension. And they've been resistant to our calls for other changes in overtime pay and permanent job security. And our members have looked at the offers from UC and said, look, this, if we take these offers, we'll just be getting further behind, and we won't be making up for, the kind of disparities there are between pay. UCSC's has the lowest paid employees in the UC system, even lower paid than employees at Merced, where the cost of living is much lower. And so our members are saying they love their jobs, they love doing their research, they love supporting students, but they can't make a living and do their jobs well if they aren't paid decently and can't count on secure benefits.
Now, when you mentioned the 2% per year possibility of that increase level being offered by the UC system at the moment, when I look at the university side of what they say they're offering, first off, the University of California, ucnet.universityofcalifornia.edu, has a page about the UPTE negotiations, and it states that all across the state, UC's represented healthcare, research, and technical staff work to support the research, teaching, and public service mission of the University of California to further that mission. UC is offering these employees a competitive multi-year total compensation package that includes system-wide pay increases of 6 to 8% over the term of the agreement. And the reason I mention this, partly to be fair to them and at least share that perspective, but also it doesn't say what the term of that agreement is that they're offering it. So 6 to 8% over the term of the agreement, how many years are included in the agreement that you've maybe seen on the table, and how many pieces is that 6 to 8% chopped into?
Yeah, so most contracts are 3 years, sometimes 4 years. So 6 to 8% over 4 years would be 2%. Over 3 years, a little bit more. And they did make right towards the end of the negotiation, they made a sort of a time-limited offer that said if you accept this now, you could get 3% cost of living increase, but no step increases and still have changes to the pension. So that's a great point. Usually these contracts are 3 to 4 years. What we have been bargaining for is closer to 4 or 5% cost of living pay increases, which are can keep pace with inflation and make up for some of the payment deficits here at UCSC. And UPTE also has been arguing for what we call step increases, which many of the union contracts have, which is about a 2% pay increase every year to reward longevity. So you get, it's an incentive to have workers who stay for a long time, learn their job well, don't look to go somewhere else in the private sector. I would say as the biggest counterpoint, when you look at the total package being offered, after the strike last spring, UC did make a deal with the nurses, the California Nurses Association, who work at the UC medical centers. And it was a good deal overall. They got about a 3% cost of living increase. They got 2% steps. They didn't have to do changes in the pension, and they got some of the protections they wanted for, nurse-to-patient ratios so that to deal with some issues of job quality. If they offered that kind of package to UPTE, I think our members would be delighted, would feel like that this gives them the security they need to go forward, and we'd have an agreement. But they haven't offered that to us.
You said changes to the pension plan have been pitched where they write it as choices for employees with the benefits. These 4 bullet points: a strong defined benefit pension plan that vests after 5 years of service, like you said, after longevity and sticking around. A 401k style option that allows employees to take both their own investment and UC's contribution with them after 1 year of service if they decide to work elsewhere. Life insurance at no cost, and support for educational advancement through tuition and fee discounts for eligible employees, maybe that don't have a degree yet, but are working in jobs at the UC system. The thing that really catches my eye is the 401k style, because that kind of thinking is in the same vein as letting parents choose which type of schooling, and it ends up promoting things like charter schools and 401k styled pensions generally invite alternatives to the state-run pension programs, correct? And what is the feeling in the union about having a choice of privatized pensions versus public pensions?
That's a great question. The unions, the nurses, AFSCME, as well as UPTE, so not just our members, have been very firm that one of the reasons that people are able to stay and do the work they love in the UC system is that there's some security about their benefits, and one of the main benefits is their retirement benefits. So people could often make more if they went somewhere, in a given year. They might be able to make more in the public sector. But if you look ahead and try to think about a career, you say, okay, maybe I'll get regular, decent, modest pay increases in the UC system, but I'll have some secure benefits, so I can stay here and do the kind of work I love. And when that pension comes under threat, it's something that touches very close to home to people. What the UC is offering, and you're exactly right, they offer it as a choice. They're trying to say that they would like to offer to new hires the option of going into a 401k, which is a market, just investment in the stock market, a 401k option instead of going into the UC pension, which has been around for decades. It's in very strong financial shape right now. The problem with this is that there's a couple of problems with it. One, in order to do that, you end up paying the fund managers, the Fidelity, you end up paying them some money to manage the pension. So that's money that doesn't go to either UC or the employee. It goes to the folks managing the 401k. If you go into a 401k, the stock market goes down, you lose all your money. There's nothing that can be done about that. All the studies show that if you're here more than a year or two, anything longer than that, the pension, the UC pension is a much better deal for your retirement. You work a certain number of years, and then based on your work and your pay, you get a guaranteed amount of money for the rest of your life. You can count on it. If you go into a 401k, you can't count on that. The problem is that if 30 or 40% of the new hires start going into the 401k, there's not going to be sufficient funding for the pension down the line. So they're not telling our current members that have the pension, oh, we're going to cut that. But they're setting up a system where our, the workers would be divided in terms of their interests, in terms of retirement security, and where the funding base of the pension over time would be eroded.
And I feel that 401k fee thing because I got to invest in one through my job, and I put it on old man safeguard mode recently, but I know just like 1% of it's going to that advisor all the time. But the question that leads me to is there are people that manage the pension, the California UC publicly run pension, and aren't there costs involved and fees that come out of it to have the people that manage those investments as well? There
are, but in recent years, the pension managers of the UC pension have done a fantastic job. They've increased the value of it. It's extremely secure. They've earned it. And when they're doing that, they're the professionals. They don't put you are not personally taking on the risk of guessing which stocks are going to go up or down and what's going to be around when you retire. I mean, there's stories after story about people who, went the 401k route before the Great Recession, saw that their retirement income then fell 30, 40, 50%, and so had to work years longer after that because all that money in the market goes away. If that happens, with that will not happen with your pension. If the pension is solid and you're there, you work your years, you do, you get your service time, and then based on your pay at the end of that, you get a guaranteed amount that you can count on for the rest of your life. You can put that together with Social Security and any other income you have to retire with dignity.
Right. And I want to pivot. We have about 5 minutes left, and I want to get down to maybe inviting DJ Peach into this conversation as a current student at UCSC. Last quarter, many professors just canceled finals or did finals a week early because of the strikes. How does the union balance the impact on students? And also, what do you say to the 7-Eleven employee whose kid goes to a university and all of a sudden school is canceled for 2 days, maybe crucial days of the quarter, and they say, hey, as a taxpayer, I'm paying for my kid to go to school, and these workers are out there striking. Can't they find a different way to do this? But I also want to somehow, in these last 4 minutes, get DJ Peach's perspective on it as a student and the impact on their lives.
To me, I think it's the regents of the University of California's job to keep everyone happy and make sure that students can do their duty as a student, and so can the people who work for the university, and they are the ones who are completely ignoring the problems that are happening on campus, and not just on campus, but every UC campus. So that's kind of my perspective. I think that it's such a small, to miss class for a day is such a small price to pay for like what the strike is standing for. And I think it's the UC Regents' job to fix this.
And then I guess we'll let you close out here with, what do you say to parents of students or students who are thinking, I'm paying for this as a taxpayer, although a lot of the funding the UC system actually isn't state taxpayer funds anymore, which is a whole nother story. A lot of corporate and private funding going into the UC system nowadays. But what do you say to those students and parents of students about why classes are canceled that day?
Sure, it's a great question. 2 points I would make. First, the last thing that our members want to do is disrupt their work and not do the research that they're so invested in, not support the students. That's why they work here. That's what they do. Many of our members and leaders were students here, have worked here ever since. They love the institution. The last thing they want to do is hurt anything. But there's, bad priorities and bad management that's getting in the way of doing what needs to be done here. And sometimes, we've tried to bargain and it hasn't worked. And sometimes you have to take other steps beyond that. The other thing I would say, the last thing I would say is, this is part of a bigger battle. I think public services and the public sector are really under fire in this country in ways that they haven't been since the Reagan administration. And you see this with the cuts to public services in the Trump budget. You see it with Supreme Court decisions. It says that public sector workers don't have to be part of, paid for the representation of their union. You see it in the government furloughs where, Trump doesn't seem to mind if the government's shut down for a while. California has taken a different view on this for the most part. Our state and our political leaders have said, no, this is not the way forward. We believe in a government that works for the people. We believe in the public sector. We believe in university that has quality education that's affordable for everybody. And we think that the UC system as a flagship institution in this state should stand for that. The tuition should be more affordable. The quality should be higher. The classes should be lower. And the people that work here ought to be paid decently so that they can stay here. They're part of the community as well. Many of them have kids here. Many of them went here. So we see this as a part of a bigger struggle to try to sort of recapture the vision of UC and the vision of California as a side of resistance against this attack on the public sector and public services.
Awesome. Thank you so much to everyone in the studio today. This makes it so fun. DJ Peach in the studio talking about our pledge drive. And I need to I'm going to take a student hostage as my co-host from now on because it's super fun. And thanks to Bill Spencer of the university professional and technical employees for coming on and talking about their labor negotiations on their contract that's been expired since 2017. Thank you to Mariah Lyons of Slug Support for coming on and telling me that I need to research better. No, I'm just joking. That there are tons of services available to students going through food insecurity, housing insecurity, crisis support, all kinds of things. They are the traffic director for all things UCSC student crisis. Thank you so much for being on our pledge drive. We're going strong. I'm not sure where we're at yet, but thank you so much to everyone for your donations, and thank you so much for dealing with the new laws that make it a little more tricky for us to get your donations. And DJ Gina is in the studio for Oiko coming up in a minute. Thank you to Do Make Say Think for the background music. DJ Oiko, DJ Gina of Oiko fame, what do you have going on today? She's tall. Hold on one second.
Well, today we're just playing some music, but it is International Day of the Bee, so we're going to have a lot of bee facts for you. Some about pollination.
Sounds suggestive. All right. We will see you next week on Unquestionable. Thank you so much for listening to KZSC Santa Cruz. We're out.